Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this. Early today, doing a question of the week stream. I thought, yeah, I've got some questions. I've got my cup of tea. Life is good, so let's do some FMEing, and I hope we get some live viewers. And if not, well then that's fine. I'm sure folk will watch this after the fact. Anyway, so let's see. I did look up some questions last night, and so there won't be the newest ones today, but these ones looked interesting, and I thought, hey, I can give these a shot live and see what I can do towards moving towards a solution anyway. So question one. Creating DEM rasters and hillshades from Lidar. So the user has got a DEM raster with 1 meter cell size from Lidar that they created with a raster DEM generator. The hill shading, they say, looks like stacked contour layers, not smooth surfaces. And yeah, it is. I mean, I guess the thing about that is that it's a raster, and so raster's made up of squares, and so I don't know that you're going to get better than that if the resolution isn't there. Like, they look like 1 meter differences. So if you're creating a 1 meter grid, then that's going to be what happens. So, and I jotted this down yesterday. One of the things I think you could do is just use a smaller cell size. The other thing would be to create a surface, because the surface is a smooth surface. Obviously, it's a smooth surface. It's not going to be sort of lumpy like that. The thing is that I can't quite figure out is, well, you've still got to create that hill shading, which you can't do with the surface, and then you've got to add that hill shading onto the surface. So if the hill shading is still blocky like that and you put it onto a surface, is it going to look any better? That's what I'm not sure. So that's what we're going to try this morning. And again, I'm doing these demos live. I've not got anything prepared for any of this, so we're just going to have to figure out how to do this. I'm wondering whether to just start with the DEM or do a point cloud. I think I might just start with the DEM, because I know that the point clouds I've got are in the city of Vancouver, and that's not particularly open to contours. It's mostly buildings. So I'm going to start with an elevation model directly, I think. But maybe I can try that afterwards to do something with Lidar, just to see what it looks like. So here's my DEM. Let's just read that in. I think this is a weird coordinate system, if I remember right. It's like in coordinate systems, lat long 83 seconds. So I don't know if it's like a meter grid or not. I mean, I guess I can reproject it. In fact, I probably should do that, reproject it to my local coordinate system. And yeah, that's my DEM. So this is like the user, say, had, what have we got there? Are we in meters now? Yeah. And the cell size, number of rows per tile, does it say? I thought it would tell me the row size. Let's see, minutes of resolution, 1200 pixels. Cell origin, that cell origin 0.5 just means the origin's in the center of the cell. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the size of the cell. Okay, so I think what's happened there is it's got a reprojection, and because it's been reprojected, but it's not actually reprojected it yet, because that's how FME works. So I think there's a raster checkpointer, and I think that will cause things to happen. It will cause it to be reprojected and whatnot. So now we've actually going to get this data. Let's open it up in Data Inspector. It's just a bit easier. I mean, all this is just getting some data together in the first place, but there we go. So, number of columns. I still can't figure out what the resolution is. 1200 pixels. So what is the size of each cell? Max extents. Spacing. Oh, there we go. 15 by 23. Is that the cell size? Let's zoom in close and see if I can measure something. They look fairly large cells. What's my cell size? Ooh, what's happening there? I've not even got to the point where I'm doing anything yet, and it's looking weird. I'm just trying to find it somewhere that's got a bit of difference to it. Okay, there I can see the cell now. And 15 meters. So, I mean, I don't know. Let's have a look at what happens if we put the hill shader, because I'm probably going to get the same deal. It's probably going to look a little bit blocky. And again, that's just how Raster works. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. But yeah, I mean, if we zoom in, not quite getting that block effect. I don't know how they get the vertical block effect on that. So if we go back to this, that is a very odd thing to happen, because that's not, where are we, Data Inspector, that's not really, I mean, I'm getting a block. I mean, are they looking at it in 3D? Maybe that's, let's do pan and zoom. Well, I'm still not seeing that effect that they're getting. I mean, all I can think of is that you've got exaggerated scale on the Z values, maybe. That might cause something like that. I don't see why. Anyway, even in 3D, you can still see this is actually a flat image because it's raster. So what we should probably do, what I was thinking of doing is we create a surface. I think we can, there's a point cloud to surface, point cloud surface builder. Oh, mind you, don't have a point cloud, so that's not going to work. So I'm just going to go with surface modeler. Where are we? Okay, so before we shade it, let's create a surface model. Surface tolerance we'll go with 10. And see what we get out of that. Yeah, see, that's the problem. I can't turn off all the other things it's building at this point. Tin surface is the one I want. And I should be able to look at that in 3D and see it is actually a three-dimensional thing. So maybe it would help the user to get that, and then let's see, what can we do? We can turn this into an appearance. I'm not quite sure. There's appearance setter and there's appearance styler. I've got to remember which one's which. Well, okay, the setter is obviously, we're taking the tin surface and this is our appearance. I just wonder if the styler needs to go in there. Probably not. But there is some weird thing to do with this that I can never remember. And this might not work. I mean, we've got some output, whether it's... Is that what I... Does that look like it's got the shading on it? I guess the only way to find out is to take all of those and output them in the data inspector and have a closer look there. So there's my surface. Oops, put it in 3D. Where are we? I've lost it. There we go. So there's my surface in 3D. And so this is the surface with the hill shading applied. So I'm guessing that's the hill shading, and that's it applied to that. So I mean, you could do that. I mean, it looks better, I think, but that's very odd. I mean, I'm not sure I've even answered the original question that why do we get those steps? And to be honest, I'm not altogether sure. Because even when I created my hill shading, it looked a bit blocky, like square, but it doesn't look blocky vertical. I mean, the only way... I mean, maybe the altitude is playing a part in that. If the sun was very low down, say, maybe that wouldn't make a difference. Because then you're getting longer shadows. But it does seem odd. You can see I've got longer shadows now because the sun's at a lower angle. And so this should appear a lot darker. Fingers crossed. Yeah, right. So, I mean, I'm not sure that's particularly useful, but it's a surface. It's got that attached. I mean, there's all sorts of things we can do as well to play with the appearance, and I might be doing that slightly wrong as well. But anyway, yeah, I really can't see why that has got those steps in for you. I mean, it should look like that. Maybe if you can post some data, maybe it's the fact it's coming from point cloud. I could try doing that. I could pull a point cloud in and see what happens. I do have some point clouds, I think. I mean, like I said, they're all building areas, but let's see what we can do. Maybe it's the fact it's come from a point cloud has made the difference. Let's have a look. So I want to figure out what coordinate system this is in. Is it going to show me anything? Unknown coordinate system, but it looks like UTM. Let's see what this does. There we go, that's better. Yeah, you see what I mean about having buildings and trees, and it's not really that useful for creating a DEM out of. But we'll give it a shot. There it is. So they do DEM, Raster DEM generator. Surface tolerance 1 meter. Spacing, well, let's go with 1 meter again on that. I don't know how long it's going to take to run that, so I'll hit the run button now. That's a nice thing, you can run this and still start building things. So they got the raster hill shader. So while that's running, I can put other stuff down and check it out. And let's see. Okay, so we've got a DEM raster. Have I got? Oh, there we go. Wow. That's again probably something I want to open up in the inspector proper and close some of these other windows down. Let's do 3D, and oh, it won't matter if it's 3D because it's a DEM. So really we're looking at different heights. So that's 0 or minus because it's the water, and these are buildings down by the water, so 17 meters, 7 meters, and so on. And these are probably tall buildings, 100 meters tall. So that's my DEM. Oops, where's there we go. So let's run that through the hill shader and see what we get. Okay, let's. Okay, now we can look at it in. No, we can't look at it in 3D. It's still on 2D. I mean, it's not. It's not great, but I'm not seeing that blocky effect that the user had. I mean, it's got these problems down here because that's water, and I guess really we should put a brake line or something in there to get that to work properly. But it's not really looking blocky like the user was describing. Like if I say the altitude is a bit lower, and we'll go 270 degrees, so we say the sun's setting in the west. Let's look at that. Yeah, so I really... it's really hard to say. Can I see what that looked like? Yeah, that's a bit darker because the sun's lower. Yeah, I really don't know, honestly. We should, if the user can put a copy of their DEM or the point cloud preferably in their workspace, maybe we can have a look and see. But I'm not really seeing that sort of blocky effect on my data. It may just be that the resolution on their data is not as good. So maybe the tolerance is higher, the interpolation's not quite right. Planar or constant, I could see that might have a difference. I think it's going to be a case of playing with those different settings and seeing what comes out of it. But yeah, so well, I'd hope to be able to just say, oh yeah, do it like this and it'll work, but obviously that's not going to happen, so hey. So here's the raster DEM. What did I do? Oh yeah, I just made it different height. So I said 10 meter surface tolerance and 1 meter cell spacing. And I wonder if that's going to make it blocky. Yeah, I mean, I think that could be one of the problems. Maybe the cell spacing is too small for the tolerance. That could be an issue, perhaps. The other issue, I guess, could be what coordinate system have you got that data in? Because if you had it in something that, if you had it in lat long, but the elevation was in meters, that could maybe cause it to be an issue. Like with this one, I wonder what would happen with that. Let's So this is now lat long, but the elevation, so lat long seconds of all things, whatever that means. But the heights are in meters. They're certainly not in, I don't know, I don't think they're lat long seconds. Let's have a look. Wow, I like that. Maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that could have been, I mean, it looks a little blocky in places. I mean, that could be a possible cause. Doesn't seem too bad at that glance, but I suppose what I could do is drop that in there. Instead of being lat long seconds, lat long, just lat long 83. And what do we get with that? It still doesn't look that bad. I mean, it does look a little bit more like what the user was having there. But maybe this is a bigger scale. I mean, this is the whole of Vancouver, so it's hard to be definite there. Okay, well, unfortunately, I couldn't answer that question quite as well as I'd hoped. So I'll move on to the next one, but hopefully that gives you some ideas out there about how that should work. I mean, it does look okay when I run it. And I've tried a lot of different things like different coordinate systems, different values. I tried creating it from a point cloud. Nothing seemed to really make the output look like you had in your workspace. Expression evaluator. Calculate the band zero value. Well, yeah. Yeah, maybe some things are going on in here. It'd be interesting to know what happened if you just put the hill shader directly after the raster DEM generator and see what that did to it, because it might, because I see you converting from meters to feet and doing other things. Maybe that is causing the issue. Maybe the hill shading part should come to here. I don't really know what those parts are doing though, so it's hard to say. Okay, another drink of tea and then question 2. So I noticed this one, and the question here was, oh, my data's moved from network drive A to network drive B. How do I change all the paths and the readers in my workspaces at once? Do you need to open them, change them manually? Well, yeah, unfortunately, that's true. It would be nice if we made a tool that could do that sort of thing, but there is another way as long as you prepare it in advance, and that will be to use relative paths. And so I'm going to just set something up to show that. I'm going to generate a workspace. Let's see, let's use the zoning data. I'm going to convert it to GML, and I'm going to put it into, I'm going to create an output folder in there. Oh, why does it need a file name? What am I doing? Oh yeah, it's GML, of course it does. I was like, doesn't it need a folder? No, it needs a file name. Okay, so we've got that. If I just run that, we should see that, okay, there's the output, there was the input, it works fine. So if I save the workspace to the same location as the data, so if I save it to there, so I could call this pathdemo.fmw. If I save it into that same folder as the workspace, if I save the workspace to the same folder as the data, then what happens is FME automatically puts relative paths in here. So we can see that there it's got the full path name in there, but it's actually a relative path. I can prove that. It doesn't show it in there, but if I open up the folder for that and edit that with a text editor, we should see, yeah, there we go. Source data set is FME MFDIR user typed. I'm not sure what the user typed is. That seems to be a new bit, but that's basically the location of the workspace / zones.tab. And the destination is the workspace location / output / zoning. So it saved that information, and it wouldn't do that for any other workspace. If I pick another workspace at random, like somewhere in here, and it's not got the data in the same folder, it's not going to do the same thing. You see, it's got all of the paths are completely like absolute paths, they're not relative. So here we've got relative paths. So by saving that in the same location, what I can do is, let me go back to where I was. We're in zoning, weren't we? So what I could do here is I can say, let's copy. In fact, I could just copy the whole thing. I could say, let's copy FME data 2020 and paste it. And it's going to give it a new name, I'm hoping. Maybe I shouldn't have copied the whole folder, but it's only going to take a few seconds. What I'm hoping is that even though we've copied it to a different folder, I could have copied it to a different drive, it doesn't really matter because that workspace now has got a relative path in there. And be there shortly. There we go. So I can now call that FME data 2022. If I go into there and look in the data and look at the copy of the, where we're zoning, path demo. Okay, I should shut that down. It won't get rid of the recover file because that was a different folder. So anyway, so I open up path demo. Where's it pointing to now? It's actually pointing to FME data 2022 rather than 2020. So I've moved it over and everyone's happy. In fact, I didn't even need to copy it, did I? I mean, I could have just gone into here and said, okay, I want to rename 2020 to 2023 for next year. Oops. Yeah, there we go. So that's 2023. Again, I'll go to the data, the zoning, open that up. Where's it pointing to? It's pointing to 2023. So that's how we sort of intend for you to manage that scenario, is we have this relative path. It does mean you have to put the data in the same folder, which seems odd, but I guess maybe you only need to put one data set in the same folder. I mean, if you've got your own structure, I mean, you could manually edit this anyway. So say the data was in a couple of folders down, I could sort of say, well, it's $FME mf underscore whatever, and then the rest of it, and make it relative without being in the same folder. But anyway, that's how we would do that. And then if you move the workspace and the data, then it all works fine, as long as the data stays relative to where it was. The only problems you get in that scenario is if I... Okay, so looking at it here, it says FME data 2023 data zoning, so it's pointing to the data. The problem I might get with that is if I just move the workspace itself. So if I move the workspace out of there and put it into this folder I've got called black hole, you would think, oh, well, it's still pointing to the absolute data paths, but it's not. Now it's looking for that data in documents black hole / so tab. So there's positives and negatives about doing that technique. The positive is you've moved the you can move the data and the workspace, and as long as they stay in the same relative location to each other, then the paths update automatically. It's only when you move the workspace by itself that you get problems. Whereas in the other way around, it would be normally if you save the workspace somewhere else and it wasn't a relative path, normally you can move the workspace wherever you like, and it didn't matter because it had a direct link to the data. But in this, it's a relative link. So yeah, so that's how that happens. And it's not very obvious in here because you don't see it say FME whatever, FME MF / whatever it was, FME MF dir. So it means FME mapping file directory, and I'm not sure where the user typed part comes from. That's a new one, but anyway, you see that. So I guess what you could do if you were oops, I should have left that open, shouldn't I? Anyway, I guess what you could do in that scenario that we're talking about here, and you're saying, well, maybe I do a string replacer and just replace it all anyway in the file. Maybe you could at the same time change them to relative paths, and then that way you don't have the same problem again. As long as the workspace moves with the data to the same drive, then it wouldn't be a problem. So yeah, I really like that question because it's sort of, I don't know, it's something perhaps we don't do very well. We've got a mechanism to do it, but you just don't really see it that easily. And yeah, and I really don't like the alternative solution, which is to just, yeah, like Neil says, if you use a string replacer to replace the paths in the workspace file, well, it's definitely hacky, and I wouldn't say it's not supported. I mean, if it's not supported in that we wouldn't guarantee that FME works correctly, but if something went wrong, we'd probably try and help you in the support team, but it shouldn't do. I mean, I really can't see why that would go wrong. But you've got to be aware that these files are made up of two different parts. One part is the layout. I think that's this part. So that bit defines the workspace in Workbench, and then the second half, somewhere down here, where is it? There we go. So that defines the workspace. So when you open that in Workbench, that's what you get generated. And then when you hit the run button, this is the part that FME generates to run that workspace. So there's no point changing it in this lower part and not changing it in the upper part, because if you do that, it just gets regenerated when you run the workspace. It will get overwritten. So you've got to make sure you edit it in the right place, which is the definition. But yeah, I'm not recommending you do that, because these mapping files get more complicated all the time, and I don't know. I mean, we've got encoding now, so you want to make sure you've got the right encoding set, because everything's UTF-8 in 2022. yeah, so I mean, just be careful about that, I guess is what we're saying. But yeah. So yeah, you can do that, or you can use the relative paths. I was trying to think of another way, and the only other way I could think of was to create your own parameter. So if I created my user parameter that was, oh look, there we go, user parameters, it says, now that's interesting. So maybe what you could do is if you move the data on a relative, so if you, because the only way to get the FME MFDIR part is to save it in the workspace in the same folder as the data. So maybe you could do that, but you don't want the data in the same folder, so you could move the data up down another layer, and you could just edit it in here. You could say, okay, it's that slash source slash zones.tab. And there we go. So now it's the workspace location slash source slash tab. So you can set up the workspace and edit it later. Anyway, the whole point of this is if you think the paths might change later and you've got 100 workspaces and you don't really want to have to change them all manually, if you set it like this in the first place, that'll pretty much sort out the problems. It's sort of doing it in advance. So I think that's my question of the week, just because it's one of those things that not many people know about. Okay. More tea, and then next question. I'm not going to do all of these questions, by the way. I'm just going to pick a couple more, and well, actually, I'm going to look at this one and try it, and then the other ones I'll just chat about briefly. This one seems to be the user is reading a JSON file, or they're getting JSON from a web service, and they want to expose a number of attributes after they flatten it or fragment it. But they want the user to choose which attributes to expose at runtime. At least this is how I'm interpreting this. So I thought, well, that should be not too difficult to do. But let's see. So instead of, actually, let's put a fragmenter down. Do I even need to read the JSON? No, I can just say go to a file. In fact, I guess you don't even need the HTTP caller necessarily, as long as you don't need authentication and that sort of thing. You can just read it directly in here from a URL. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a file with JSON in it. So I know in that data folder, which I've now renamed, that there is data in this GPS folder that's JSON. So I'm going to read that, and I'm hoping that's going to fragment it without me. Yeah, okay, we've fragmented it. Perfect. So if I click on some of these, what are we getting out of that? Okay, we probably need to flatten the results into attributes and recursively do it. Yeah, that's the way. So we're doing that, it looks the same, but now we've got a whole bunch of extra attributes like charging state, battery range, speed, GPS, whatever. And we want to expose some of those, but we want the user to be able to expose what they are, the user to choose what they get. So I guess you can just create a user parameter, but then the user's got to manually enter them, and if they don't know what they are, then that's a problem. So what I was thinking would be the best solution. Can I change that type? No, I can't change the type there, so I'm just going to delete that. What I thought might be one way of doing this was to create a choice with value parameter. So choice, the value is, I'm going to call it vehicle speed, and we're just going to say speed Now maybe this should be a multiple choice. Because, okay, so if that's the thing I'm wondering about with this, is how do we get it to pick multiple ones? Like here I can rerun this and I can pick speed, and that should, I hope, expose the speed attribute. And that doesn't. That's interesting. Okay, well this is where it's going to get interesting, isn't it? Because I was expected, like if I go in here and type in speed, I should get that exposed. Yeah, there we go, speed. But if I had it as a parameter, oh, actually, I know what I've done. I've got them the wrong way around, don't I? Value display, yes, I got them the wrong way around. That's why. Vehicle speed. So let's run that. Show me the vehicle speed. Is it going to expose that? Okay, well it exposed speed, but it was missing. Oh, did I do it uppercase? Don't tell me I didn't do that. No, that was lowercase. So how am I getting an uppercase value in there? That is weird, because it's actually got vehicle speed. Huh. That is weird. So it's actually using the display value, not the actual value. That is odd. Okay, well, let's just make both of them speed. See what it does. It's going to be one of those days, I can tell. I'm going to have to query that one later with the developers, I think, because... Okay, did I rerun that? Speed. I don't want to save. That drives me mad. Wow. Okay. Where is it getting that from? It's not even... It's not getting that from anywhere. I'm rerunning the whole thing. Yet still it is trying to expose vehicle and speed. Which don't exist. How strange is that? So if I just type into that charger underscore voltage, is it still going to try and... Okay, there's charger voltage. Now let's try the parameter. Okay, it worked that time. I've got no idea what it got into its head there. So maybe now I can change the display. Like I said, it's going to be one of these days. Especially when I keep hitting V instead of C on the keyboard. Okay, vehicle speed, let's run that. It should map to speed. There we go, we're getting speed exposed. The problem is, that's only one attribute. So what I need to do is turn that into a multiple choice. Is that a different one? Choice, No, it's the same one, so I should be able to turn this into a multiple choice. And it says allow multiple selections, but it's turned off. So let's go with current time. Why? Because it's not. Oh, it's a drop down. I need a list, don't I? Allow multiple selection. Now what's that going to do? That's the question. So if I just still have vehicle speed, it should just do speed. If I run that again and choose time instead, still get speed. What happened there? We're getting messages. I don't like warnings. Huh. Oh, this is... Still trying to do something that's very odd about this. It's like if I do a manual run of it, like so it should be exposing latitude now. Now if I go back to that parameter, now it works. This is very odd. So we're doing current time, which should map to current underscore time, and it doesn't. It's still coming out of speed. This is very, very peculiar. So I'm not even selecting that. Well, I mean, that would be the ideal way to do it. The only thing I wasn't sure about is how it's delimited. And what this expects as a delimiter. Like if I do enter two values, like speed and heading, like how is it being delimited in there? Is it just space, or is it a return character, or what? So that's, there we've got speed and heading. So how is that delimited, and can I create that delimiter in there? That's the, I wonder if it will tell me if I drop it in it. Let's see, it should say, what do we got? That's the data. Just fragments. I'm trying to look, see if it's got those parameters in, or not the parameters. Does it have speed in there? No. Okay, so I don't know how it passes that information across. Huh. Well, this is not a great day. I really don't know what's happening with this. Do that again and just see. Set it to parameter, rerun. I mean, they say that definition of what is it, insanity or whatever, is doing the same thing again and expecting something different, but at this point it's almost like something is happening that's different. I just don't know what it is. It's like something different's going on. Like, why is it yellow? I mean, there was no errors in there. There's no real warnings. I don't think there's anything in the log that's telling me it's wrong. I mean, that's all of the intro stuff. Created a feature. That's an odd message. Spatial indexing it. Well, it's not spatial, but anyway. Yeah, see, I don't see any sort of message that's a warning specific to that not working. So why doesn't it work? Well, and there it is again, speed. I'm going to have to call that one a day, I think, because I really don't know why that's happening, and that's something to query with our developers. I mean, I wonder if it's something to do with the parameter type that this is. It probably is. I could explore some more, but it's probably boring to watch, so I'm not going to do that. So we'll give that one a miss. But yeah, that's okay. Well, 3 questions down and one of them answered. 2 failures. This is someone asked me earlier this week. They said, "How do you pick the questions? How do you know? Like, do you practice them in advance? How do you know you can get them to work?" And I'm like, I just pick the ones I think I can work, and I try and solve them. And okay, as we're seeing here, it's not actually working. So I don't know what the problem is there. Anyway, so we're having a bad day. That was the last one I wanted to demo. The other ones I just wanted to mention. A server app's able to capture images uploaded by a user. Yep, I mean, we can do that. There's no real reason to, unless you're doing something with the data, which it doesn't look like you are, there's no real reason to actually read it. So as DRC mentions here, you could just like set a publish parameter for the photo and just sort of copy it from there. Use the file copy command, the file copy writer, which I know I've demoed before, so I'm not going to demo it again today, but you should be able to do that. So pick a file, do a file copy writer to wherever you want. You just use a file copy writer, and that basically you specify the file that's coming in, the file where you want it to go to, and yeah, that's it. So you just say creator, send it to there. You just fetch the parameter for the source data in here, and that's what you tell it you're copying. So there's the file source copy. So you just connect that parameter to there, and then you also expose or add where you want to copy it to, like the destination file name. And yeah, so that comes from the import parameter. The destination comes from wherever you're writing it to, whether that be a local thing or whatever. And yeah, that should do it. I mean, the other way of doing it would be to put like a Dropbox or something like that. There's all those different transformers that you could use to just copy a file to a Dropbox location. But basically, there's no need to read and write that file unless you're actually wanting to do something with it in FME. So that's that. But it did make me wonder, because I know some folk were asking about the FME, what do we call it, Data Express, this app. So I got that app on my phone, and you should be able to create a workspace that people can take a photo on their phone and load it up. And I know people have been asking how that works because the documentation's not great. So maybe I'll try and demo that next week sometime. That's one I do need to practice in advance, though. So how to get the generic writer to choose between DXF and DWG. I'm just going to mention this one because I like the answer there. It's the perfect answer, actually. You basically, there aren't different writers for DXF and DWG. It's just the same writer but you change the output extension, file extension. So as Hans says, just create a parameter to let the user choose between DXF and DWG, and then fan out on base name plus that parameter. In fact, when you fan out a writer, yeah, I mean, it's just a fan out expression. Really just needs to be .dxf or .dwg, depending on what you want, and then that's pretty much it. So anyway, yeah, so that I just wanted to point that out as being a really nice answer. That was an interesting problem to think about, but a good answer. And the last one I wanted to mention was this one about converting video to JPEG or other formats. How do we do that? Well, there's this article by Dimitri, but basically there's this tool, MPEG, which basically will turn your video into different frames, and we can use that. And you can basically use it inside FME. I don't know if Dimitri mentions how you do that. You just use a few ways of doing it. System caller is how it's done here. So there's a video file that Dimitri's got, and then he georeferences it and whatnot. But yeah, that's basically how it's done. Separates frames from the video. So yeah, that's actually more of an article, a knowledge base article, than it is a blog. But maybe we should do that. And as Dimitri says, he's got a lot of ideas for transformers. I don't know if any of them got done, but what's that? FFmpeg video property extractor. So there's that that exists already. But so yeah, so it's definitely possible, and Dimitri shows how to do it in that blog post. So yeah, that should be doable as well. So that's all I wanted to show today. I'm sorry I didn't get more working. I think this one, the change in the source, becomes my question of the week by default, because it's the only one I actually managed to show a positive solution to. I don't know what went wrong with the JSON fragmenter. I'm going to have to talk to someone and try and figure out what that problem is, because it's obviously not what I expected. And the DEM raster, yeah, I mean, it seems to work fine for me. I don't know quite why the user is getting all of these bunch of really weird steps. It must be something to do with the resolution, the Z scale, coordinate system. Something in there is doing that, I think, because they've got more than just DEM generator and hill shader included. So I figure if you put the hill shader directly after the DEM generator, have a look at that and see if that looks better. If it does, well, then obviously we know it's something going on in between in here that's the problem. If it doesn't, then okay, well, now we know it's the DEM that's at fault, or the point cloud that's an issue. So yeah, so that's a suggestion to try for that. But yeah, well, thanks if you did tune in today. Apologies again for not being able to give more definitive answers, but I hope it was interesting and useful. And if you're watching this online afterwards, well, if you're watching online now, say hi to YouTube, because this will be going on YouTube pretty shortly. So, but anyway, I don't have a sneak peek for 2022 lined up next week, but maybe I'll try and do that Data Express example, taking photos, and how to manage that, and we'll do that as a demo. So yeah, but other than that, have a great weekend, and yeah, I will see you next week, and see you online another time, I hope. Okay, Bye, folks.